A lot of people, anyways, are curious about this. Some, I guess, people are on both sides of the aisle. Half say it's a bunch of bull. The other half say, well, there's some truth to it. And then, of course, I guess you've got a third bunch who everything that you see in the sky is Planet X.
That's so true. That's really true. Well, I think that the most important thing in understanding what is coming is the four horsemen of the apocalypse and how they relate to the metaphysics of truth. And for a long time, most people believed that the four horsemen meant that there was the one was the Antichrist, and the next was the beast, and none of them made any sense. But the four horsemen are simply the expression of the metaphysics of truth. The first horse is the white horse; it's the conqueror. That's truth. The second horse is the red horse, which is belief, and it's given a sword, and its rider was permitted to take peace from the earth. So this signifies how belief and truth are always at odds and fighting each other. It's not like they're fighting truth. It's because of their perceptions. And that's what's creating that metaphysical balance that I spoke to you. And that's what the third horse is all about. It says there was a black horse with a rider in his hand. He had a bow, and the rider was talking about 3 quarts of wheat for a denarius and or a quart of wheat and 3 quarts of barley, but don't harm the oil and wine. Oil and wine are products of time. So what this indicates is that this delicate balance between truth and the errant choices of erroneous beliefs is staying balanced without any critical effects to the world. And then we talk about the fourth seal, which is there's death and Hades. It's the black horse or actually the pale horse, and his name is Death, and Hades follows him. Well, that is when we die, we are darkened souls, and that doesn't mean that we're intentionally dark, but in the light of the truth, of all truth, we are dark, and through our meeting with this essence, we go, whoa, it exposes our indignance. And that goes on. It goes on. It doesn't stop until the sixth seal. And the sixth seal, which I was going to talk about in a day or two, and I probably will, is when, and here's what it says in the sixth seal. I saw, and the sun turned black as sackcloth, the moon turned blood red, and all the stars fell from heaven like a fig tree shakes its fruit in a winter gale. The sky vanished like a scroll that is rolled up, and every mountain and island removed from its places. Well, first of all, after the four, the fifth is when it's simply just the people that have already died saying, hey, when is it going to end? When are you going to avenge our blood on the world so that we can be redeemed? Basically, that's what they're saying. And the opening of the sixth seal is that. And so every time I read about these things, I was like, well, how do you put that into perspective? The sky vanished like a scroll that rolls up. Well, scientifically, if our polar our magnetic fields were to shift instantly, suddenly our sky would appear to disappear. If there was a major pole shift, if you think it's just a magnetic thing, well, that's not true, because a pole shift is based on how the Earth revolves and everything. So the magnetic fields have a lot to do with the way the Earth revolves, which means that there would be a repositioning of the Earth, which means that all the mountains and islands would be removed from their places. And then all the generals and the rich men and the slave and the free and the strong all hide beneath caves and say, hey, protect us from the wrath of the Lamb. And you say, well, what could create something like this? And for the longest time I said, well, it could be a meteor storm, it could be this. I really didn't know, but the Nibiru theory made sense, and yet I was just as skeptical as everyone else about Nibiru. But the more I look at it, and especially, I was going to send you these pictures today, Michael, and I didn't, but and I sent them to Marshall Masters.
See,
I took some pictures. What?
Oh, I was just going to say, well, I won't say. I'll talk to you off the air. You mentioned a name that kind of rings bells with me, but okay.
Okay. Well, I don't know. You know, I'm sorry if I did.
Oh, no. You're fine. Go ahead.
Okay. So I sent him some pictures, and I wanted to send them to you because, look, I'm not one of those that believes that everything in the sky is Nibiru. And I'm still looking for evidence. You know, you have to look up if you want to see things. And I'm still looking for evidence of something. And it was this past winter, and I haven't seen it since March, but in the winter, the sun was doing some really crazy stuff. And I took some pictures, and even though the pictures clearly indicate that this body that I caught was extremely small, it couldn't have been the sun, even though it was right near the sun, but the sun was hidden behind the clouds, and this body wasn't. It was like, whoa, and I was zoomed in. I'm like, man, I took it, and I was like, I'm not going to post these. I'll hear all these people say this or that. But what it was to me was proof that something's out there, and it's not easy to detect, despite these so-called people who are no better. Well, if it was really there, we'd be able to detect it. No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't be able to detect it from a fixed point on Earth, but other people can. So is it this particular incident that's going to cause the havoc on Earth? Well, based on the theory of Nibiru and what it does, I believe a lot of things about it. I don't know for sure what this is all about, but I can tell you that those pictures that I took are definitely, it's definitely not the sun, even though the sun was there, and it looks so big. And then it started getting weird. It looked like it was separating into two behind all these real thick clouds. So I took a picture of that, zoomed in, and then suddenly there was a row of clouds that crossed, and the big part of the sun moved behind the clouds, and this little thing was there. Then 2 weeks later, I took a picture on the boardwalk in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and only because it was another big thing behind all these clouds. And when I took the picture, I zoomed in and just took the picture. When I looked at the picture, I see the same body, and it's clear. And I posted them on Facebook in the Nibiru Planet X site and on the Nibiru.
You gotta send them to me. I'd love to see them.
I will send them to you, Michael. I will. But I don't need. See, here's the thing with me. I don't need to qualify the Nibiru theory to know that something is coming. I've known this for years, and now I see the evidence, whether it be Nibiru or anything, that we're on the verge. I mean, we're looking at a possible economic collapse. We look at Jade Helm. There are so many things that are going on right now that easily point to something major coming that they're not telling us.
The world bad. The world is getting ready to fight for resources. I know somewhere, like changes in its wobble or whatever.
Right, and but they did, and this goes back to the '80s when they discovered some sort of perturbance in the orbits of Neptune and Uranus, whatever, and they sent up the Iris satellite, the infrared. Well, I forget what the moniker is for that, but all these amateur astronomers go, well, no, there's no way, because they would tell us. And no, they wouldn't tell us. Let's be realistic. If there really is something that is hard to detect, and you can create a model that shows why it would be hard to detect, that doesn't, so, to me, when it's time to look for evidence, you don't say, oh, that evidence doesn't exist. You try to create a model that would make it hard to detect, so you can say, okay, well, let me at least look in this area because of this model. But no, people are like right away, no, it can't happen. I don't really care what people think. Like you said, I know that something's coming. It is so evident now, and whether it's being that we're going to be fighting for resources, what I get from the sixth seal of Revelation after the effects of this body, because I'll tell you right now, I really believe that the effects of the LHC in Geneva, Switzerland, the Large Hadron Collider, CERN, and some other devices, including the Ark of the Covenant, which is something that people think doesn't exist anymore. It does, and you can bet that those that are controlling powers have it. And I really think that it's going to be used as a weapon to fend off what the effects of this Nibiru thing is going to be. But it's not going to happen. They're not going to tell us about it until right up to the end. Now, this isn't covert or something bad. What do you expect our government to do? What do you expect them to do? First of all, if something major is going to happen, they're going to do whatever they can to thwart it or avert it, and they're not going to tell us until the end. And that makes perfect sense to me, and I don't blame them for it, because we live in a society that our system has systemic defaults, and that's just the way it is.
See, I agree.
It's not...
I'm sorry, Matthew. I agree, and I also disagree with that. I mean, if I was on their side, I would I see, even where I'm sitting now, I could see why they wouldn't tell us. But on the other hand, we want to know, and we pay for the information that they have.
But the evidence is there. I mean, I already know. I was talking to a couple of friends of mine the other day, and I said, you know what? I tell you these things, that it's coming, and I show you these pictures, and you go, don't matter. If it happens, it happens. I go, yeah, that's what you say now. But if it happens, you're going to be the first ones that are freaking out. Well, I'll be sitting there, and I won't be freaking out at all, because, I've expected it. So I think what we need to do is stop trying to convince others that it's going to happen, and stop. It's like beating a dead horse.
Well, and you're getting all these.
Content and it's coming, then just get yourself prepared mentally, physically. Look, you could do everything you want. I mean, I was just talking to someone today. What am I going to do? Get in my car and drive somewhere where I think it might be safer? There's
exactly. Exactly. That's what I've been. That's what I've been saying. It's like all these people. Well, and they get on these radio shows and they try to tell you where the safe places are. And I'm thinking, who the hell died and put the God badge on you? How do you know what's going to be safe?
Oh, but the Zetas told me. That Zeta talk is a bunch of bull. I'm sorry. And we didn't get into the part about. I haven't gotten to that yet. We're going to discuss it, but. If we talk about this battle between truth and belief, we're going to see how deep that really runs. And, unfortunately, God, it's already 11:15.
I know.
And I'd be glad to take questions in a minute. But so all I'm trying to say is that we can't, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. What we need to do is be ready for the next, when the smoke clears. And we can't be running here, running there, saying this is going to be better, this is going to... I mean, yeah, I understand that if there really is a comet that hits the Atlantic Ocean, well, guess what? I live on the coast of the Atlantic, on the East Coast. So if something happens, I'm dead. Well, you know what? That's just the way it is.
Oh, I'm on the East Coast too, and I'm not running. If I ran to the hills when people told me to, back when I first started this show in 2007, 2008 is when Late Night in the Midlands started. I would have been done then. I would have ran to the hills, and I'd still be sitting there saying, "All right, where the hell is this thing?"
Exactly. So, if we do have a connection to to God or whatever, and there is really a purpose for us to survive, then we'll be in the right place at the right time. And so we can't worry about it. We just have to do what we want to do and keep moving along. I'm not afraid of dying. In fact, I think it would be historical to die with, millions and millions of people at one time. But I have to mention that what I found about the sixth seal is that even though these things happen, it doesn't appear that creates the biggest destruction. What comes afterwards is a war, and I really think that they're trying to thwart this thing with the Large Hadron Collider, and they're trying to change reality by changing the future. And as bizarre as that sounds, that's where we are in our discovery as far as scientific on a collective scale. Sure, they're not going to tell us that, because when everything does hit the fan, when the SHTF, when it hits, we're all going to say, okay, this is over. But the power comes to those who can effectively provide the technologies that will ensure that the surviving populace is satisfied and not freaking out.
Well, yeah, because they're going to pick the surviving populace. They've already got it planned out. There's already cities underground. I mean, I've seen pictures of farmland that they have underground with artificial sunlight, and I know people say, well, some of these things could be photoshopped. The truth is, we've seen it. We've seen the trucks have taken pictures going in. So we know that they're ready for something, and they've got their seed banks, which is, in my opinion, there's your little Noah's Ark.
well, but what do you expect them to do? If they knew that something was coming and that had the potential to destroy so many people, what good would be getting everyone in a panic?
Well, I think that point that, because it seems like they're going to bring in their martial law at some point through all this anyways. So I would think that, I think personally we all have a right to know, and I guess you just have to be prepared for the worst. And
right, but, you talk about martial law, I don't want to sound like, I am far from believing that the system is right, but I understand it for what it is. And I'll tell you right now, I know one thing: if something happens, I'm not going to be going out. I have no guns. I will not buy guns. To me, I'm not going to try to kill somebody so I can have food. My attitude is, the true human spirit is going to survive. Well, you're going to have your 1 in 10 who are renegades, but you're going to have the other 9 saying, hey, you know what, we got to figure out a way to work together here so we can survive. And that's what's going to happen. And I think the fear has got everybody thinking it's going to be. But the martial law, if we have troops and everything that are there to prevent those 10% from hurting other people, well, guess what? Thank you. So I don't like to look at it from a negative point of view.
They're only going to be there until they run, Matthew. At some point, it's going to get even too scary for them.
Well, you're right about that. I mean, you can see the human nature, and panic and fear has a lot to do with it. But what I'm trying to say is, you know what? I'm either going to die in the cataclysm, or if I'm alive, I'm not worried about dying afterwards, because my attitude is, hey, here I am. What I got, you want it? Here, take it. You want to take my life? Take my life.
I'll broadcast.
What are we trying to save?
I'll broadcast live from Yellowstone. It'll be just like that movie. Oh, and speaking of movies, if anybody hasn't seen that San Andreas yet, my personal opinion, it sucks. But that's all I'm going to say about it. Just sucks. But hey, they're trying to warn us of stuff, I think, with some of these movies, though. What do you think?
They've been doing it for a long time. Yeah. I mean, I get little bits and pieces out of movies for many years, and I have to say that this September 23rd, for some reason, has been a big thing. I went and saw Tomorrowland by myself the other night, only because I look for these clues. And the funniest thing about this is that in the end, it's all about changing the future because of something that's coming. And in it begins again with September 23rd, actually 63/9/23/00 on this countdown clock that starts. And the funny thing is, it's been nothing but September 23rd. I can't help but think that this is a subtle way of trying to tell us September 23rd is going to be a pivotal time, but that there is an effort going on to try and to prevent this. Now, whether I'm right or wrong doesn't matter. The point is,
why September 23rd?
I don't know, but that date has been in a lot of movies, and I saw that on In fact, what was the last one where they showed? There are so many movies where it shows 923, 924, constantly, and this Large Hadron Collider is supposed to be in full force, running at 13 trillion electron volts, and they're trying to create other dimensions. And like we said before,
maybe that's where Planet X will come from, one of these created dimensions.
Well, no, I think that they know it's coming, and they're trying to prevent it. And yet, like we said about the metaphysics of truth, nothing is random or happenstance. So this is not, I don't care if it's been here before or not. The difference now is the Christ principle, and we didn't get into that and how it relates to all this. But I can assure you, when I talk about the Christ principle the way I do, I aggravate Christians. So it's just about tying as many things together. It's tying many things together. I do, but I also have a certain bond with them because they go, man, maybe you're right, but I have to stick with what I believe. Well, fine.
I don't.
You
mind.
Believe what you believe, and I'm going to stick with mine. But we're going to get into that. Michael, I didn't even get as far as I wanted to today, but
right. But you did tell me you did tell me in a conversation on Facebook, I think it was, that this Planet X shouldn't be laughed off so easily, and that it could actually sneak up without being seen.
Exactly. If you create a model, I saw this one model presented to where the ecliptic planes are perpendicular to each other. Our ecliptic plane is flat, and the other one is at a 90-degree opposition to our ecliptic plane. So, and it's coming up from the bottom, from below our ecliptic and over the top of the sun and down, rather than revolving around it on the same ecliptic plane. And if it does, then you're not going to see anything except for that which is in your field of view. Remember, we're sitting on a fixed point, and if we look from our fixed point, we can only see so much on Earth, below us, and only so much above. And this is why, they've got the Antarctic satellites and whatnot in place to try and. But
NASA could see, right? I say NASA could see, though, right? With the
NASA knows. NASA knows, and what do you expect them to do?
I expect
even if they knew in 1983. Are they? The last thing you could tell a society in the way our system is running right now is that guess what? In 30 years. We're going to be destroyed. Well, a lot of people may say, oh, well, that's 30 years from now. No. But, a lot of people are going to say, 30 years, this world's going to get destroyed. Well, guess what? I don't care. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do... You can't. You just can't do it. And so...
You're right.
Whether or not...
You're right,
and
but
if it weren't for those pictures that I took, and saw with my own eyes, and believe me, before I took the pictures, I saw this small thing with my naked eye, and I'm going, I can't believe that I am seeing this. I'm like, you know what? What are the odds? Because it was just unbelievable. And I'm going to send you the pictures, and I wanted to send them to you today. But even so, you could tell them to somebody. I posted them online, and people who believe say, yeah, that's amazing. And others go, that's just a lens flare. I'm like, a lens flare? There's no other body there. That's the only body there. It's not a lens flare. The clouds are covering it. What are you talking about?
Exactly. So that and
people have their own. You can't change people. And this Nibiru or whatever it is that's going to happen is what is necessary to stop the runaway train and begin anew. It's time for that move towards collective understanding, no matter how many people die. Although there is quite a bit of deception on the horizon afterwards, because of there's so many other things we haven't discussed. So it appears to most listeners that, you know, most of the things I'm saying are they can't see how they're related, but believe me, I can see how everything is related, and that's what I'm trying to get across. And hopefully we'll be able to do that over the next few nights. But you know, whatever it takes.
Yeah. And for me, you know, and somebody, Ira actually in the chat just said, you know, he's not afraid of death, and I share that. I'm not either, but, you know, that doesn't mean I want to die today. I mean, but when it happens, it happens. And I know I'm not afraid of it because I faced death when I had my heart attack, and I came to terms with it. What the hell? I was actually a little disappointed that I had survived because I was almost there. It's like, damn, this could have been over already. But, you know, now I'm back. I want to stay a little while. But at the time, I was ready. I wasn't crying and going, why me? You know, shit happens, dare I say.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you know, I don't know. Whoever saves his life will lose it, and that's the bottom line. I'm not worried about, because life does not end upon physical death, and if we believe that, we understand that, then we have to realize that there's nothing really to fear.
Well, I think that's when we
know it as well, and yet I didn't just see it next to the sun. 2 weeks later, I did. I took that picture. I told you I took 2 pictures from the boardwalk, and it was so huge, and there were clouds in front of it, and it just so happens that little body was sticking right next to it, and you could see it clearly in the picture. And I couldn't see it with my naked eye. But the other pictures previous to that I took, where it was just, get out of here, the regular sun was gone, and this little thing's there, and I'm starting to think, is that my sun? I'm like, no way. It's too small. It's not even, it's only 1/3 the size of the full moon when it's zoomed in, and here I was zoomed in. I'll send you the pictures. And yet, people will look at the same pictures and make excuses. It's all about what we're willing to believe. And I'm at a point where I don't even care if it's Nibiru. I know beyond doubt that something is coming, because everything must change. It has to change. And I've been seeing it, and now I see the sixth seal, which I couldn't understand. I couldn't find a way to explain how this could happen. And Nibiru gives us, Nibiru, whatever you want to call it, another celestial body, a rogue planet, gives us a reason for these things of the sixth seal to take place. So when I wrote my book, I didn't believe in Nibiru. I heard about Nibiru. I didn't believe in Nibiru. I just figured that whenever it's going to happen, it's going to be, you know, some major natural events, like a major earthquake, a shift in the poles, meteors, and this was going to create this incident would be big enough to awaken the whole world. The whole world would know that this was the harbinger to things to come. And that's what I look at this as, a harbinger. Whether it be Nibiru or some cataclysmic event, something's coming soon. And I believe that they're trying to avert it in every way. And, you know, we can go back to the 80s and the Star Wars Defense Initiative and really look at that and say, you know, maybe they knew then. And this wasn't defense for nuclear weapons. It was defense for meteorites and other things.
Well, and I've also thought about Nibiru, and there's different things that it could be. It could have been a planet, or it could have been, I mean, it could have been a ship so damn big that it looked like, you know, the Death Star from Star Wars, and it might have had the letters on the side of it, Nibiru, you know, and, you know, the SS Nibiru. And I mean, it could have been that big that, you know, you hear about the stories of fire coming from the sky and this and that. So I think there's definitely some truth to this whole Planet X thing. But my whole thing is whether it's been something that's happened in the past, it may never happen again, at least in our lifetime, or is it something that we're being warned about that's coming? You know, and I don't know. I just know that it, you know, NASA's looked for it. I've seen the evidence there, but you know, there's been so many people out there who have thrown out so much BS on this that it's hard to get anybody to pay attention to it anymore. And for me, I say, well, when I see it, it's here. And, am I going to be surprised? No, probably not.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I really think we talk about the 10% who are seeking, the truth, and the other 90. It's the 90% that have been locked in their own little, in the same paradigms, who haven't, said, well, wait, why is this, and didn't question things. They're the ones that are going to panic the most. I'm not panicked. Look, I'm saying, hey, let me just catch the wave. I'm not. I don't, and this is just part of the metaphysics of truth that creates the world so that we can become awakened to the truth. And so I don't look at any major event as something bad. It's something to rejoice, because progress comes, and something that dramatic or that far-reaching is really a blessing in disguise, but most people don't see that, because an apocalypse is an awakening to truth either through harsh experiences or the insight of our wisdom, like I said earlier. So these events are not random or happenstance. They are, like I said, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, the delicate balance between truth and the erroneous choices caused by erroneous assumptions is a delicate balance, and it's about to become askew. So it's not random or happenstance. So we could prevent it, but we're not going to be able to prevent it until it's over, and then we're going to realize things about ourselves that we haven't realized before. So, that's how I look at it, and I think that when we talk about, some other things a little bit later on, and tomorrow, Wednesday, we'll get a better idea of
Yeah, and some
how it all ties in.
And some people are trying to say, whatever's coming won't be until September of 2016, and they could be right, but I think I don't see us getting that much further. With the system the way it is right now. I mean, for me, I've been saying October. Look for an October type surprise, but I just think it's around the corner, whatever it is.
Well, I have to tell you something that I kind of believe that things are coming within the next year, but in all honesty, when this all hit me when I was 22 years old, the most important understanding that I got was that the world was on the brink of imminent disaster. I was 22. It was 1977, and you know what? I thought it was going to be 1984. I thought it was going to be 1988. You know what? I learned that it doesn't matter when it's coming. It's coming. And I'm not going to try to put a time to it. So I would live each day, but I didn't live worrying about my future. I just lived worrying about, short term, the next 2 or 3 years. And I had a good life because of it. I moved here, moved there, and did a lot of different things. And there's just a couple things that are still unfinished that I would love to be able to rectify, and hopefully I'll be able to.
I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. I want to keep helping by informing the public in any way I can about the lies that are being kept, and so many different perspectives and ideas and theories that we bring to this show with the different guests. And I feel like it's all a piece to the big puzzle, and we're all bringing a piece. And if we all bring that piece, we could finally get this puzzle put together. And I say this, when we do leave this flesh body of ours, this meat suit, I think that if we didn't get all the answers while we breathe the air, we will get those answers when we cross over to wherever it is we go when we leave this body.
Well, yes, that's true, but there's a little bit more to it, and I think that the general consensus is believing that once you die, all this peace and love and harmony is going to hit. Well, you know, you have to understand that if we haven't reached our potential here on Earth, what makes you think that when we die, we're going to suddenly have this power? No, it's the power that's going to reveal itself to us that shows what our iniquities are. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have that the redemption doesn't exist for us. It just means that, you know, we have to see. We can't move forward until we see. So it's the seeing and the suffering that helps us move forward. And, you know, I get very upset with people who think that there is a reincarnation and we come back and do it again. No, there's no need for that. And this is the Christ principle is something that we've got to discuss. And you know, but I get ahead of myself because, like I said, there's so many things that have to connect. You know, and in order to present it in such a way, you know, I'd like to do that. But we just got off on the sixth seal, and the sixth seal is something that I've believed was going to open, you know, even back when I was in my early 30s. And, you know, so... Well,
you know, for me, I'm more worried about what human beings will do to human beings on this planet, I guess, than I am of anything that comes from the heavens. And that's not to say that, you know...
trying to find the truth. And so these things happen. And it's not a bad thing. It's just the way it is. I'm not worried about what men will be doing to men and whatnot, because we've been doing it to each other for centuries on end. You know, that's not going to stop until we reach this understanding. And no matter what it takes, the truth is going to reveal itself to us. So, you know,
yeah. Well, it is going to reveal itself at some point, and you know, for me, I've always tried to go with what I can prove or what I feel in my heart, because I trust myself. And people often say, "Well, who do you trust?" And the only one I could totally trust in this lifetime completely is myself, right? So, you know, we got to start listening to ourselves and dare I say, believing ourselves. But then again, there are some people who are pretty out there with their ideas, and you know, everything is ET, or you know, everything is Planet X, and they, you know, they love a good story. I mean, I get stuff sent to me every day. I got people who will pound me with Planet X, and they get mad if I won't accept it all. And it's, for me, it's, you know, I'm not here to debunk it, but you know, I look for evidence, and anytime I see something that I think might be, you know, on the side of evidence, I share it with everybody. But you know, that's all.
It's such a small part of the whole picture, and that's what I'm trying to, you know, get across here. And it's just a small part. And when we understand, you know, a little bit more about our history and what went on, and look at history from a different perspective, and understand, or at least take a new perspective on this of our history, then we can understand the Christ principle a little differently, and then we can understand why, like I explained to you, why these things happen. They're not happening randomly. They're happening because it's time to change. And, you know, you can even go to the Vedic texts of ancient times, you know, the Mahayugas, and the Hindu religion dates back to 5000 BC. And, you know, they talk about, you know, the Satya Yuga is like 1.7 million years, human years, the Treta Yuga, the Dvarpa Yuga, the Vapara Yuga, and the Kali Yuga. I can't pronounce them the way they should, although I think I do okay. And you know, so there's a cycle. And it's a cycle of, you know, learning, progressing, and turning our souls into, you know, higher beings. I mean, that's what the purpose of life is.
Well,
we're trying to turn it into something so temporal, and it isn't. And I think that we need to look at it from that perspective. And I really... You know, so this is one of the reasons why I don't like talking about Planet X, because then all of a sudden I get categorized as one who's talking about, Planet X, or when my theory is much more encompassing than that, much more far-reaching.
Well, I've gotten that too. People go back to old shows I've done on Planet X, and they start acting like, I'm one of them, and it's like, let's celebrate the world's coming to an end or something, and it's, and I'm not one of those people. I'm one of those people who like to see proof, and I like fact, and I'm not afraid to give theories or to say what I might consider might happen, but I basically, if you want me to pack up and run to the hills, I gotta know, when and where, and so nobody could tell me.
Well,
that.
Nobody knows the day or the hour.
That's right.
That's for sure. And it's just
yeah.
You just.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. Like I said, it's just such a small part of the whole picture that the truth. We will get to the truth one way or the other, and that's not because of us. That's because of God. That essence is trying to reveal itself, so that all of these questions and other questions will all be answered. God is all truth, and sin, quote unquote, is the failure to know all truth. And so because we don't see all the answers, we go on our assumptions and we make our decisions based on that, and our belief that the world is temporal and this static reality, and when in fact it isn't. So I'm trying to be, I like to talk about the things that you do, and I like to, but I'm kind of philosophical and maybe even theosophical, because I'm trying to answer questions and point out the insufficiencies of each of the conducts, while also saying, hey, to the conducts, you know what? There are some things that make sense, and let's try to separate the wheat from the chaff. And so,
yeah,
I don't know. It's 11:45. Do you want me to answer some questions, or?
Oh, well, Matthew, I was just going to say we're getting to the end here, and I wanted to give you the floor to get out anything that you'd like. I think we've been going along and answering the questions as we've moved along, because we did have calls earlier, but we weren't taking them earlier, and so that's the way it goes.
Well, here's what I want to let everyone know, that what I want to discuss in the next our next interview on Wednesday.
Okay.
I want to begin with trying to prove that there was a super society that existed, but unlike most of the alternative historians who are trying to equate the evidence of advanced civilizations at around 15,000 years ago or more, or more or less, as the evidence for this super society, is short-sighted. Because what I want to be able to prove is that it had to be more than 4 million years prior, and that because that was the last time, sometime in late tertiary time, somewhere between 7 and 4 million years ago, was the last pole shift. But the pole shift wasn't just a magnetic pole shift, and according to the Columbia History of the World, of course it's a 1972 edition, they do explain this pole shift, and we want to try to show that the short-sighted nature of these ideas, that there was a previous culture somewhere about 15 or 20,000 years ago, is as being the one that is referred to biblically and in the Enuma Elish and other ancient texts that talk about, with these converging myths of a previous super society that existed before us and was saved on some vehicle. But what we have with those kind of ideas is that there was no evidence of total destruction, and during that time, on Earth, and the existence of lesser human beings are shown while the ancient wonders were prospering. So that's the defeating evidence of the more recent super civilization. So we have to come up with another model, and the model that I want to present is that the Alpha and the Omega are the same thing. Okay, it represents the supreme, the complete and perfect expression of physical, intellectual, and spiritual human achievement, the highest level of existence on this physical plane. And there are levels in between. And what I want to show is that the Alpha, at the very beginning, was long ago, and there was a devolution, a destruction. But at the time of their destruction, they were much higher beings. And the ark, which wasn't a boat, but something that signifies arc, A-R-C, like a rainbow that bridges the gap between two completely different civilizations and two completely different periods in time. And that ark was the catalyst to the evolution of this new epoch of humanity. And the people that were able to cross over, Noah and his sons, and I'm going to show you some really important evidence that will prove that these were the gods of ancient Egypt, Greece, Rome, that became myths later, and the myths that later became the pagan beliefs. And we're going to see that it really was the Tower of Babel incident that changed because those gods were not ancient aliens. They were previous society, and they were the gods of the impetus to the recording of history and religion, which was the same concept. So what we're trying to do is show this longer period of time, and then we'll be able to show some of the reasons for the anomalies that exist in the current evaluation of history, and how we can show that these historical events were really misunderstood much later because of this. And we'll talk about Manetho and Berosus, and that trying to connect the Great Flood to time somewhere in the last 12 to 40,000 years is short-sighted. And then I want to talk about the Great Pyramid, because in my theory, we talk about the Alpha and the Omega, and the Alpha and the Omega is the first axiom to the theory. And it's not hard to accept, once we understand the metaphysics of truth, that we will reach this level of human understanding that a lot of people are already talking about, the golden age, where we're going to be able to talk telepathically and we're going to have these higher powers. Well, if we can see that in our future, what we need to understand is that it existed in the past, and we have to show what that link was. And when we talk about the Great Pyramid, to me it's the most spectacular and sophisticated and the most mysterious building on the planet. And I want once and for all for people to understand this, and we need to start shouting out, why aren't these truths about it talking to the class, taught in the classroom? And Gary Osborne did a tremendous job with some of the discoveries he had that really supported the ideas of the things that I've discovered. And I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about the Table of Nations. And I want to talk about, which is, genealogies of Noah and his family, and how these really were the gods, and that's why nations were named after them, and they lived for so many years, and they were reigning over the evolutionary creatures of a new age that were spawned by the previous civilization for one reason, because of a big mistake. And I'm going to explain that big mistake in relation to the metaphysics of truth and how it all relates to the conflict that we exist in, and why, whether Nibiru happens or not, why we need so much to understand the Christ principle. It is so It is so important. And yet, because of all these other things, most people, not most, but so many people who don't believe in God are saying, oh, that's a bunch of nonsense. And the people that do believe in God and Christ are believing in things that, to me, seem a little bit nonsensical themselves, and we have to discuss that.
Yeah,
so, and how this all relates to our return to the Omega.
And we'll definitely get into all that on Wednesday. I do have one question here, one more question from our chat room,
okay.
And I want to get that before, because we are really running low. Somebody asked if Planet X exists and orbitable mechanics reveal it. He says, how in the hell would powers that be keep that from those that understand those mechanics? Gravitational pull would reveal its existence.
And that's a very good question. And like I said, I don't know. All I know is what I saw. All I know is what, like I said, it doesn't matter to me whether it's Nibiru or if it's just a meteor storm or a comet. All I could tell you is look at my pictures, and if you want me to post them on your Late Night in the Midlands site, I will do that so these folks can come and look, and I'll say what it is, and they can determine for themselves. I don't know that it was Nibiru. I just know that it's something that never existed or I've never seen before. And will it have an effect on us? I don't know. I know what everyone's telling us that it's going to do, but it doesn't mean that it will. And these orbital mechanics that the questioner is referring to, I don't know what those orbital mechanics are. And by the same token, if amateur astronomers, those that are really good at understanding what's going on, can look and take a snapshot and say, hey, this is what's going on, and there could be no, I don't know. I am not going to sit here and say that Nibiru is what is going to cause this sixth seal. But I can tell you that that sixth seal is going to open very soon. And the fact that whether that be just because of nuclear war because of economic collapse in the U.S. and an attempted takeover, and we end up in a huge war. I don't know, but I could tell you that in line with the story of the human journey, what it all means and why, and what the final battle is going to be, the conflict. When the smoke all clears, there's going to be a conflict afterwards, and that is the only way we can understand the progression. And I can't wait to discuss all of that with you on Wednesday night. So,
all right. Well,
especially the Great Pyramid, because that's the second axiom to my theory, and I really need to stress that, and I hope that others may be listening to help me along with this. So, I don't want to get tied up in the Nibiru discussion, because I know that something's coming, and the pictures that I'll post on your site, you can take them for what they're worth and what I say about them. And I don't know. I am not I don't profess to be an astronomer of any type, nor do I know the formulas nor would I know how to determine whether or not the orbital mechanics were off. So, and I'm not sure that many amateur astronomers can do that as well. So, those questions are great, but they stem from, skepticism and not, let's take a big picture and say what's coming.
All right. Well, Matthew, we are dead out of time here. I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I look forward to Wednesday with you. And we do have you linked up over on LateNightInTheMidlands.com. So if people want to get over to you, they could do it that way, or you could give them the website now in case they're not over there.
My website is MatthewPetty.com, and that's 2 T's in Matthew, and Petty, Petti. .com. And I just as a prelude, if you can, you could go to my site and MatthewPetty.com and look at Alpha to Omega excerpts and read the history of history. It's only about a 10-minute read, and that'll prepare you for what's coming up on Wednesday night.
All right.
And hopefully we'll have a big turnout. I don't know what the turnout was tonight, but
all right.
I hope it was a good one.
Well, great, Matthew. And please get me those pictures, and I'll get them up on the website so everybody could see them, or at least link to them. Yeah, send them to me.
Can I post them right to your Late Night in the Midlands group page?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you can. You can put it right on the group page, and I can go look at them there and share them with people from there. All right.
I will do that. Yep.
Okay, well, thank you again, Matthew. I appreciate you being here, folks. That's Matthew Petty.